Apriorian is a concept derived from a priori, which refers to a way of thinking called deductive. As a concept it is compared to a posteriori, which is a type of thinking called inductive. The propositional basis of Apriorian philosophy, or the assumption it makes as a field of study, is that there are two races and realities, and they are founded on two kinds of thinking. The profane world is inductive. There is a simple reason for this. The profane world thinks that what it sees is real. Profane persons believe the world is physical and that they are physical, therefore, the only source of information is through the five senses. This makes for a sharp demarcation between the profane and Apriorian. Apriorian is deductive, analytical, logical, and moral. These are all interchangeable concepts. Truth for an Apriorian is defined by the degree of coherency in their worldview. But we cannot isolate our theory or beliefs from reality, and so when we say the truth is defined by coherence, we refer to the entire mental construct. Our theory of creation cannot be divorced from our economics or politics. The profane world must be inductive in the way truth is acquired. The truth of the profane must reflect the way information is acquired. But the way the profane look at the world defines or limits the information they can acquire. Everything they know is filtered through the physical apparatus of their sensory cells and stored, so they assume, in a physical brain. This paradigm makes no sense. Their way of thinking about reality precludes the possibility of metaphysics, but without metaphysics there is no meaning. How does a physical system prioritize elements in the data stream, or how does the brain decide what is significant within a data field? A telescope magnifies everything it is aimed at. A microphone picks up and transmits every sound within a certain frequency and volume. Physical modes of gathering data have no preferences about what they transmit. How ears and eyes focus on things that have or may have meaning to us. We concentrate on speech in preference to background noise. We are very active in our response to the environment. We are not just passive data gatherers. The profane pass over such questions. Their first priority is to reject God, and to do this they pass over all of the negatives to make do with whatever still remains. The bastion of profanity is empiricism. But this is really nothing more than a system which ensures the replicability of results. Everything is documented, which tends to restrict the elements of an experiment to what can be seen and felt. A simple experiment would be to drop a ball out of a window to see if it falls. A more complex one would find a way to measure the time that the ball was dropped and the time it hit the ground, to determine the speed at which it dropped. Such experiments are thought to demonstrate the redundancy of what is called the God hypothesis. It is true we do not need to postulate the existence of God to experiment with gravity. The physical world works according to the laws of nature. But even the most devout Christian sees no need to insert faith in God, in experiments testing the limits of nature. Faith in the reliability of natural law correlates with faith in God, as the Creator. There is no need to insert God as some kind of variable, in experiments testing the structure of matter, because the nature of reality reflects the nature of God. There is no need to profess God as a person exploring nature, because nature was made to operate consistently, according to the physical laws. It is when we get to the social sciences, that the profane way of thinking begins to unravel in a serious way. We cannot understand humanity or the human condition, without addressing the issue of God. The profane way is to view humanity as an extension of physics and chemistry. But not even biology is subject to the same tools that work in the physical sciences. Life produces another dimension. Life is not a branch of physics or chemistry. Quite the opposite, physics and chemistry and all the other sciences, are the products of human transcendence. They are the result of our transcendence over the world. If we have polluted water, no amount of clean water will eliminate the pollution. Adding more water to polluted water only dilutes the pollution, it does not eliminate it or get rid of it. The profanity of this world is like that. We can try and make this world better, but the rot will always be there. Because this world is rotten. We might lower unemployment, but the cause of unemployment will still exist. The same goes for poverty, inflation, and so on. No matter how much we reduce the symptoms and reduce the visible signs of the rot, the system will still remain. The capitalist can change the policies of his company all he wishes, but at the end of the day he still owns the company, and it is still the capitalist that is making the decision as to how his company will be operated. We encounter the same problem with the state. The state can reduce taxation all it wishes, but it must still tax its subjects so long as it exists. The only way the state can fix the problem of taxation is by no longer existing. The profane cannot fix their profanity, nor will they want to. The existence of the profane system is predicated on them being the solution to the world's problems. This is why they cannot look at the beam in their own eye. The problem must be elsewhere, because they are the solution. However, there are only two races of people. There are only two paths we can follow. Life is a choice. Ideally, this choice is made as we enter adulthood. However, some people never enter adulthood, or they come to it very late in life. We are all born into a physical body, and we are all born as infants. We all grow physically and mature into physical adults. As adults we are expected to come to a fork in the road. Up to this moment we are minors under the care of adults. At some point we are expected to join the ranks of the adult population. We were brought to maturity so we could repeat the process. But to move on to this next stage requires a decision to be made. This choice decides if we are truly mature or simply grown children. An adult is more than a child that has attained physical maturity. Adulthood is a choice. We see this often. Many persons do not make this choice and so remain large and troublesome children. They cannot take responsibility and remain victims, treating the state as a parent and demanding their wants be respected and not denied. The Bible calls this maturity, spiritual maturity. The true adult is a spiritually mature being. But even here, some people are more mature than others, but the point is, the process starts with a decision. If we make a decision for Christ, this will get us on the path to spiritual maturity. But others attain to a level of maturity simply through a decision to be self-supporting and accountable for their costs. One cannot be accountable without there being an accounting. Sometimes the profane system makes it difficult to understand what the costs are one creates. And it can be difficult to be accountable for these costs. Leaving out the details and the nuances, the mature adult will be accountable or at least strive towards full responsibility for their actions. However, if we live in a profane system that rejects maturity as an obligation, we all must address, it can be difficult to attain to spiritual maturity. Remember, to achieve true maturity requires spiritual maturity, because it is as a spiritually mature person that we separate from the profane world. We cannot be mature and live as children. The profane world is the world of the child. The Bible calls it the world of the flesh, that is because the young live in the now of their physical wants and needs. All a baby can think of is its physical comforts. However, this lack of accountability and need to satisfy physical wants, leads many of the immature to crime. Our response to crime ought to focus on encouraging the accused to acquire a sense of responsibility. In Christianity, there is a need for accountability, i.e. time-for-time responses. If you want the product of my time, you must provide a product of similar time value. In Christianity, equality is time-based, my time is equal to your time. Every crime is a devaluation of someone's time. Every criminal is required to work off their time, or to get the products of other people's time, in keeping with the time-for-time principle. The criminal cannot consume our time without compensation. Prisoners register with a Christian charity that allocates prisoners. Christians hire prisoners for authorized purposes. The prisoner is paid in time off their sentence. When they do not work, there is no time being served, that is, no time is deducted from their sentence, unless they spend time providing services to the community they harmed. Clients pick the prisoner they wish to hire. A week of work is a week off the prisoner's sentence. If they refuse to work, they never get out. Recidivism moves one up the scale of jobs the prisoner is authorized to perform. Good ratings for jobs well done increases the prisoner's chance to be authorized to do lighter work. Jobs are categorized into levels of difficulty. The lighter the sentence, the lower on the scale are the jobs one is eligible to do. The more of one's sentence one works off, the lighter the jobs are. Escapees have time added. The more time one is serving, the worse the jobs the prisoner has available to them. Scripture incorporates a technology that separates us from the profane world. However, Christianity has largely been usurped by bad actors, known as wolves in sheep's clothing. Apriorian is a neo-pacifist culture designed to remove both the impulse and benefits of war, not to mention all of the irritants that lead to its cousin, crime. Apriorian is a model community designed around pacifism. Its governing principle is equality through time for time. It utilizes a time-based currency. This enables Apriorians to utilize the labor theory of value in the market and the principle of subsidiarity in our political organizations as well as to be theologically Christian. A Pacific community has no unemployment, debt, poverty, inflation, pollution, waste, taxation, homelessness, war, and crime. These are all symptoms of the profane world system. The profane always produces crime and generates war. It might appear that to eliminate war and to create peace requires huge investments in public services or the alteration of human nature. We do not need to turn humans into persons with no personal quirks, nor into automatons wired to prioritize non-confrontational behavior. Apriorian assumes humans will remain the same as they always have. We target but one thing, and that is parasitism, which is another way of saying Apriorians target inequality. Equality in our belief system means my time is worth the same as your time and your time is equally as valuable as my time. Therefore, if I have to work 40 hours to make a living, so do you. It means no one gets a free ride, and it certainly means my time is not so lacking value that I need to work to support my needs and yours. Time for time means if a particular item means I must work 5 hours, then it will take all purchases 5 hours of work to buy this product also. There is only one reason why one person's time is worth more than another person's time, and that is increased productivity. There is no reason why learning ought not be treated as an occupation. People ought to be hired to learn based on their abilities. The profane world creates competition, and competition, when it gets out of hand, produces war and other violent conflicts. The profane think war is necessary, but pacifists have often considered peace a unilateral decision. Peace is the goal but as a purpose or objective, not an identity. We cannot be mature as individuals or as nations if we are not accountable for the costs we create, because unaccounted costs lead inevitably to war. We must have peace because it is only in peace that we know we all are living as spiritually mature beings.